Hello guys and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to read from a file and write to a file in Java. First off, let's create a file. And before we could create a file, we have to use the file class. The file class is going to allow us to create a file in memory. Okay, so now what we're going to do is create the file object. So file, call it file equals new file, and we have the constructor here. So before we do that, let's import the file class java.io, and here for the constructor, let's put a semicolon for the constructor. What we want to do is either pass in the file name. Yeah, so this will create the file on the project directory. If you want to specify where you want the file to be created, you put the path and the file name. So in this case, I want it to be in the project file, in the project directory. So let's call it example.txt. So this will create a file object in memory, essentially a file in memory. It does not create the file in your file disk yet. So in order to create the file, what we want to do is call a method from the file object. File dot, we want to create the file, so create a new file. And this essentially will create the file for us. Notice how the create new file method gives us an error. Well, that's because the method throws an IO exception. So in this case, we could either surround this with a try and catch block to catch the IO exception, but what I'm gonna do is just add a throws declaration to main, and that should catch any IO exception. So what we're gonna do right now is actually notify the user or notify us that we created the file. That's this on the print line, file created, and now this will create an example.txt on the project directory. So let's save that and print. So now we created the file. So let's see, and as we can see, we have example.txt. Now that we created the file, we should try to delete the file. So okay, back to our code. So all we gotta do is call the delete function from the file object. In this case, file dot delete, and that should delete the file. So let's print out that we erased the file. So the print line, file deleted. Oh, forgot the T. Okay, let's save that. So okay, we're gonna recreate the example.txt file, and then after we create it, we just delete the file and print that out. Let's see what we get. File created, file deleted. Let's see a directory, and the file is no longer there. Also, again, for the IO exceptions that create new file throws and delete file, you'll want to handle them yourself with a try catch block. I'm just using the throws IO exception for simplicity. And now that we know how to create a file and delete a file in Java, let's learn how to read from a file and write to a file. In order to do that, we need to use the file streams. Let's show this diagram. to get a visual representation. So in this diagram, you'll see that we have an input stream and an output stream. The input stream is meant to read from a source, and in this case, or in our case, we want to read from the file. So the source will be the file. So the file input stream reads from the file and gives it to Java as bytes. In the output stream, we write data to a file. In this case, it's the destination, the file. Back to our code. So we don't need the file delete this portion. We're not gonna delete a file. Okay, so now let's write to our example.txt file. So let's instantiate a file stream. File output. Okay, output. Let's call it out equals new. Oh, forgot the stream here. Stream file output stream constructor. Let's import a file output stream. There you go. So now what this takes in, it takes a file object. Let's pass in our file object. And what we want to do now is create a string that we're going to write to the file. So the string with a message, let's call it message equals, and then hello from file. Okay, so now we call this method the write method. We want to pass in. Okay, so thing here is that the output stream only takes in bytes. So in order to do that, we have to pass in our message and then use the string class function get bytes. And that's just gonna convert our string into bytes and pass it to a stream. Let's close our stream. Okay, close our stream. Once you're done with a stream, you should always close it. Okay, now so let's save the file, save our work, and let's run it. Okay, file created. I forgot to write a message there to prompt the user, but let's go check it out. Finder. Okay, let's go to documents. Oops. Okay, here we got the example.txt. And let's see what it has. Hello from file. And that's how we write to a file. So, okay, let me take this off. Close this. No. Okay, so now that we wrote to a file, we don't need to create the file. Let's take this off. Let's comment this off. So now what we're gonna do is read from the file, from the example.txt. So file, in this case, input stream. Let's call it in new file input stream. Okay, so let's pass in file. That's the file we want to read. Okay, so now we gotta import it. In order to read the data from the file, we need to create a buffer. In this case, it has to be bytes, an array of bytes. So let's call it buffer, and it's an array equals new bytes. And so we have 16 characters. This case, just make let's make the buffer big enough, 20. That should be big enough. Okay, so it's byte, not bytes. So now we use the read function, and in this case what this does, it's gonna read the data from the file and write it to the buffer. So we want it to write it to the buffer. So this will write all the information, all the data to the buffer. So now all we have to do is display the data in the buffer. So we have to iterate through the buffer array and cast each byte into a character. So let's do that now. Let's use the for hands loop. So okay, byte. Let's call it byte. Let's call it B. And the buffer. Oh wait. Buffer. System.out.print line. So we got B here. Let's scroll this a little down. So again, this is just gonna give us a byte. We want to cast it into a character. So chart, and this will cast in each bytes of the array into a character. Since we're working with bytes. So now we should save that and see what we get. Oh, we got the data printed each line. So instead of doing that, what we could do is change that to print, and then we could just add a space. And that should make it more readable. Let's save that. All right, now there you go. Hello from file. And that's how we read from a file. Almost forgot to close the stream. So in.close. There you go. In this video, we learn how to create a file and delete a file using the file class. We also learn how to read from a file and write to a file using the file input streams and the output stream. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris, and see you next time.